श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय राधिकायै प्रियात्मने श्रीश्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायण गोस्वामिनिति नामिने। श्रीकृष्णलीला कथने सुदक्षम् औदार्य माधुर्य गुणैशयुक्तं वरं वरेण्यं पुरुषं महान्तं श्रीनारायणं त्वं शिरसा नमामि। त्रिदण्डिनां भक्तशिरोमणिं च श्रीकृष्णपादाब्जधृतये हृदि चैतन्यलीलामृतसारसारं नारायणं त्वं सततं प्रपद्ये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्याय नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। श्याम सुंदर शिखंड शेखर स्मेरहास मुरली मनोहर राधिका रसिक मां कृपा निधे स्वप्रिया चरण किंकरीं कुरु। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे तन्नय माम चरनन्तिके। भक्त्या विहीनापराधलक्षै क्षिप्ताश्च कामादितरङ्गमध्यै कृपामयि त्वं शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So first of all, I offer my unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of my most worshipable spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedant Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of Sachidanand Thakur Srila Bhaktivinod, and unto the lotus feet of our entire Rupanuga Guru Varga, and my Danvat pranams to all the assembled devotees. So, by the mercy of Shishi Guru and Gaurang, by the Gossel's mercy, we are able to continue the study of Sri Jaiva, and we are on chapter 7. Today we will be concluding this chapter. This was a long chapter with many important points that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explained through the story of Chandidas and the Mayanti. So, um, so now, last time where we stopped was where he was discussing the about those who leave the home, the grihityagis, those who renounce the home, but then because of uncontrolled senses, they again fall down, they marry, but still continue to stay in the ashram. So the question he had asked was whether they have to be considered within the grihast or should they be considered renounced. So he was explaining that, and then he mentioned that such devotees, because they have fallen from the state of renunciation, and because they continue to fake renunciation by staying in the ashram and collecting money, they cannot be considered Vaishnav because they're following the proper etiquette. And even though they are chanting the holy name, that holy name is not pure. That's not Shuddh Harinam. That is Nam Aparad. Because they are thinking that even though I'm committing abominable activities, but because I'm chanting on the strength of the holy name, I can become free from the repercussions of the wrong things that I am doing. This is Nam Aparad, the seventh offense against the holy name. And if one chants with this idea, then he will certainly fall from the spiritual platform. Why? Because committing offense on the strength of the holy name is cheating the Supreme Lord, committing great offense against the Supreme Lord because the holy name is non different from him. So then he had asked that is the domestic life of such people not Krishna centered? And this is where we had stopped last time, so we will continue. So then Sri Anantadas ji said that in Krishna consciousness, there is no room for hypocrisy. So, as we discussed last time, there's so many different anarthas that we suffer from. The material world means all these unwanted qualities, which are called anarthas or sinful mentalities. For example, lust, greed, anger, laziness, all of these keep us bound in the material entanglement. But one can become free from them if one sincerely applies oneself to the path of bhakti. But if one is a hypocrite, then it becomes very difficult. Because even though externally one may fake that one has control over the senses, one may try to artificially control the anger, and one may fake that I am engaged in many spiritual activities, but internally his mood is not of surrender to Shri Krishna, but to get some cheap name and fame and to collect money. So, this hypocrisy is very difficult to see. If someone is lusty, you can see that in that person's behavior. If someone is angry, that can be seen. But hypocrisy is difficult to see. And we see nowadays, especially in India again, I keep mentioning, that many such cases we see where they are so called great religious people and with great following, but if you look closely in their life, they are committing all kind of nonsensical things, and sometimes they do get caught. So hypocrisy is not not at all beneficial. It's actually very detrimental for Krishna consciousness. So he says there is no room for hypocrisy in a Krishna centered domestic life. There can only be complete honesty and simplicity with no trace of offense. So, bhakti really means to be honest. One should never hide anything from Guru and Krishna. Krishna is there as a super soul within our heart. We cannot try to hide anything from him. Similarly, one should not hide anything from Guru. So, one should be complete like an open book in front of the spiritual master and the senior devotees. Yes, we are full of anarthas, but the a sincere devotee, an honest devotee, will honestly admit that and go in front of Guru and the senior Vaishnavas and ask for their help to overcome these weaknesses of the heart. So this then Yadav Das ji asks that is such a person inferior to a Grihastha Bhakta? Anandas ji says he's not even a devotee, so there is no question of comparing him with any Bhakta. So see, the standard that is set by our acharyas, that simply wearing a tilak, simply wearing this kanthi mala, simply wearing the attire of a Vaishnav does not necessarily make one a devotee. One has to follow the sadachar, one has to follow the etiquette, the proper etiquette of being a Vaishnav. So he says such a person cannot be called a devotee. So what is the question of comparing him with any bhakta? So now the question comes, does he have a recourse? You know, see, in many religions, the idea is that if you are not following the worshipable deity or their path, then you will either eternally suffer in hell or will eternally be in heaven. There is only one chance that you have. But that is not in Sanatan Dharma. Even as parents, when a child commits something wrong, it's not that you kick out the child because the child does not listen to you. You give the child a chance again and again and again, because as a parent, your goal is to bring the child on the right path. So whatever punishment is given is just to rectify the child, right? It's not because you are trying to hurt the child. Neither you kick out the child, right? So Krishna is the supreme father. He is most compassionate, most merciful. So he is not giving us trouble or these problems that we face in our life because he wants to get some revenge, right? No, not that's he's trying to rectify. And for that, knowing that we are weak, knowing that we will falter, he gives an opportunity again and again and again, as long as we are honest. And similarly, more compassionate that Krishna are his devotees. And the Sanatan Dharam, the whole process, the Vaishnav Dharam, is like that. So, yes, there is a recourse. So, Yadav Das ji says, how can such a person be rectified? Who, because of being hypocrite, is now not even at the platform of a devotee. So Anant Das ji says he will be counted amongst the bhaktas again when he does two things. The first thing is he gives up all these offenses. So all the wrong things that he is doing, all these sinful things that he is doing in the garb of a devotee, he should first give up all of that. When we take initiation, we commit to following four regulative principles. And sometimes, again, because of weakness of the heart, one may break those principles. But then one should feel genuine remorse and one should pray to Guru and Krishna and beg for their mercy. So Gurudev would say, Anutap Sahit Prayashchit. One should feel genuine repentance with some burning in the heart, not repenting more as a ritual, right? So, and then constantly chant Sri Harinam and sheds tears of repentance. So, if one performs repentance, if one genuinely asks for forgiveness with that mood, again, as I said, not just as a ritualistic practice. Oh, I did something wrong, and the purificatory process was, oh, you should chant so many rounds for a month. And you just chanted those rounds as a matter of a ritual, but there was no genuine remorse from the heart, then the purification will not happen. Again, you will fall back into the same sinful process. So, this mood of repentance, genuine repentance, cleanses the heart completely. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written beautiful bhajans with this mood. Amar Jivana Sada Paperata Nahika Punya Rilesh. And then he wrote Gopinath Mama Nivedana Suna. Gopinath Mama Nivedana Shuno. Very beautiful bhajan. Three parts of this bhajan. I think as sadhakas, practicing devotees, we should read these bhajans and try to enter into the mood of these bhajans. Shri Gurudev said that the bhajans written by Shri Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, they are non different, no less than all the other scriptures, because they have put the essence of all the scriptures in these bhajans. So he's saying, Gopinath mama nivedana shuno Vishayi durjana sada kamarata kichu nahi mora guna. See, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, such a great acharya, who's an eternal associate of Sri Yugal Kishore Radha Krishna. And what is he praying? That, O Gopinath, please hear my prayer. Why? Vishay Durjan. I am Vishay, I am a sense enjoyer. And Durjan, such a wicked person. Sada Kamarata, always addicted to worldly desires. Kichunahi Moraguna, I have no qualities. And then he continues that Gopinath Niyata Charane Sthana, the 24 payars or couplets in this three-part bhajan. Very beautiful. I'm reading a couple from there. Mange e pamara kandiya kandiya karo he karuna dana. O Gopinath, niyata charan sthana, that please give me place at your lotus feet. Mange e pamar. Pamar means such a sinful person. Kandiya kandiya, crying. Karohe karunadana, I'm begging for your mercy. Again, coming this cry coming from the heart. Because without the mercy of Guru and Krishna, we cannot overcome all the bad qualities that we have. Gurudev said that, in fact, except for complete surrender at the lotus feet of Sri Guru, there is no other way to overcome the weaknesses of the heart, these anarthas. Because if one is not surrendered, then any amount of sadhan will not purify us. So then he sings that um, गोपीनाथ आमी तो मूर्ख अति किसे भालो है कभु ना बुझी हो ताई है नो मामा गति. Gopinath, Ami to Murakha Ati. I am indeed a great fool. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is singing. And he's actually singing with this mood. He's not just writing. So, similarly, when we sing these bhajans, more important than the tune, more important than the musical instruments, more important than all of this is the mood. So he's saying, I'm indeed a great fool, and I have never understood what is good for me. So, what is good for me? This is why I am in such a state. So, like this, if one has that genuine mood of repentance, here he says, Anandas Babaji, that one can then again be established in the path of bhakti, again be established in bhajan. So then Yadav Das ji says, Grihast bhaktas are situated under the rules and regulations of Varanashram Dharam. If a Grihast is excluded from Varnashram Dharam, is he not barred from becoming a Vaishnav? So his question is that since the householder devotees are within the rules and regulations of Varnashram Dharam, if the Grihastha is excluded from Varnashram Dharam, because if he has done something wrong and now he's not within the Varnashram Dharam, can he still become a Vaishnav? So, Varnashram Dharam, according to the Smriti Shastra, many rules and regulations. And if one, for example, became a sannyasi and then he fell down, he's not technically within the Varnashram, but can he still be a Vaishnav? So, Anandas Babaji says, yes, why not? Because Vaishnav Dharam is very liberal. So, in other paths, there is not so much of forgiveness. Yes, as I was saying, in many parts, it is like eternally you suffer in hell or you eternally enjoy in heaven. There is only one chance. But why would the Lord, why would the Supreme Lord be so cruel that he will only give you one chance. So Vaishnav Dharam, just like the Supreme Lord, is very, very liberal. So he says all the jivas have a right to Vaishnav Dharam, as he had explained in the very first chapter. That's why this is called Jaiva Dharam, because each and every living entity has the right to follow Jaiva Dharam, to follow Vaishnav Dharam. And even the outcasts, who are the outcasts? Those who are not within the Varnashram. So according to the Smriti Shastra, certain classes, for example, those who are those who work with leather, then those who are certain type of labor class, then those who are hoon, many such people are considered outside the varnashram system. Shwapach means those who are dog eaters. So all of these are considered outcasts. But he says even they can take up Vaishnav Dharam and live as Grihasthas. So one can be a Grihastha and be a Vaishnav even though he is outside of the Varnashram system. And similarly, those who have accepted sannyas within Varnashram, but then they fall down from their position, but again later on, by repenting and following the process of pure bhakti, he can again become a grihastha, a householder. And such a person also has the right to be again established within the Vaishnav system, even though he's outside the Varnashram. Right? So then he says the third category is there are many others who abandon Varnashram due to their misdeeds. But if they and their children take shelter of Shuddh Bhakti by the influence of Sadhu Sang, they may become Grihastha Bhaktas, although they are outside Varnashram. So the point to understand is that Vaishnav Dharam is superior to everything else. Why? Because it is not dependent on one's caste, it is not dependent on one's state. If one falls down, he can still become a Vaishnav if one genuinely repents. So, everyone, irrespective of what category, what class, what country, they have a right to become a Vaishnav. So, that's why it is so liberal, and we see how Mahaprabhu embraced everyone, irrespective of what their background was. Nityanand Prabhu went door to door, not seeing whether it was a Brahman, whether it was an outcast, whether it was Hindu or Muslim, but engaged everyone in chanting the holy name. So, this is the real mercy. That's why Mahaprabhu is called Mahavadanya, the most merciful. So then he says, see, now there are two types of grihasthas, right? So those grihasthas who are within the Varanashram, because based on they're following all the rules and regulations and strictly staying within the Varanashram. But then there are those who are grihastha, meaning they're householders, but they are excluded from Varanashram. And the three categories that we just discussed, either they fell down from the sannyas, or they are outcasts, or they themselves abandoned Varnashram. So out of these, so they are all grihasthas but not within Varnashram. So his question is, of these two categories, which is superior? So then Anantas Babaji gives a very beautiful answer. He says superiority or inferiority is not decided based on whether one is in Varnashram or one is outside the Varnashram, whether one is a sannyasi or one is a brahmachari or grihastha. First of all, a real devotee never thinks that he's superior to anyone. But if we compare the levels of devotees, that one who is genuinely a devotee, one who is genuinely surrendered, one who is following the principles of bhakti, one whose heart has become so softened by the pure mood of bhakti, by bhav, by prem, that person is superior. So whoever's bhakti is superior, that person is considered to be higher. So it is not dependent on anything exterior, not dependent on one's varan or ashram. But if neither has any bhakti, so in a situation where either someone who is within the Varanashram or those householders who are not within the Varanashram, if both of them do not have bhakti, then from the perspective of social structure, from a relative perspective, he says those who are within the Varanashram, they will be considered higher. Why? Because at least they are following some regulative principles. So there are many, many householders, right? The world is full of householders, and how many of them actually follow the Varnashram system? Hardly, very few. So he's saying if those who are just householders for the sake of enjoying, compared to those who are in the Varanashram system and following the rules and regulation of Varanashram, they are at least considered better or higher. However, from the spiritual perspective, so this is from the relative or from a social general perspective, but from the spiritual perspective, both of them are fallen because they have no bhakti. So, someone who is a grihastha and following the ritualistic practices, and again, the mood is just to perform some pious activities and some rituals so that one can attain higher planets. Well, at least the person is doing something good, right? So, in that sense, he's higher. But from a spiritual perspective, he is still not considered to be higher. Why? Because all those rituals, all that acts of piety, ultimately what benefit he's going to derive? Maybe heavenly planets, maybe lot of wealth in next life, birth in a high status family, or some great enjoyment within this life, but will still be stuck in the material world. So if one does not have bhakti, ultimately the yardstick is if one is situated in the path of Shuddh Bhakti, pure Bhakti, or not. So then a couple of other questions he asks. He says, a grihastha, does he have the right to wear the garments of a mendicant while he is still a householder? So Anant Das ji says no. If he does, he is guilty on two counts. He cheats himself and he cheats the world. So see, as I was explaining last time also, this part of the discussion of the seventh chapter is focused on those who are renounced, but after renunciation they engage in activities that are contrary to those who are in the renounced order. And sometimes we wonder, why it is important for us to understand. The reason is that we should know what is right and what is wrong so we don't get cheated. Because nowadays, there are more cheaters than genuine saintly people. And, we see this, and there's, still examples of those who are householders, but they are wearing even saffron. I would not take the name. One very famous such person, he's not there now, but even his, a family based religion, and, his offsprings, the next ones, they are also householders, but wear saffron. And they have a large, very large group. Now, unfortunately, people don't understand that according to the scriptures, what is the right etiquette. One can be a grihastha and can certainly be a spiritual master, no problem, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur explained earlier in this chapter. One can be a grihastha and preach, one can be a grihastha and do all of these spiritual activities. But wearing the dress of a mendicant, for example, wearing saffron, or in those days, when this whole, the story of the Mayanti, of this story is taking place, those days they will take Babaji Vesh and wear the loin cloth. So he said that kind of a dress should not be worn when someone is staying within the house. So this is important to understand, because when we deviate from the principles given in the scriptures, then slowly, the deviation becomes very deep, and that's when the corruption starts happening in the pure spiritual path. So, therefore, one should be very careful. This discrimination should always be there. Therefore, it is important to understand what is the right etiquette, what is the right behavior of someone who is a grihastha and someone who's a mendicant. So he says he's cheating himself, and he's also cheating the world, because generally, especially in India, people have some mood of respect for those who are wearing saffron. But if one is not necessarily renounced but wearing that saffron again just to get followers and money, then it is wrong. So he says, if a grihastha adopts the dress of a mendicant, he simply affronts and ridicules genuine mendicants who wear the dress of the renounced order. So one should maintain the dignity, the integrity of each one of these orders. Unfortunately, again, because we are in the age of ignorance, Kali, and a lot of these principles get compromised. And that's where slowly dilution starts taking place. As I was saying, last time also, in geometry, you have angle, right? So you may have one line and an angle of even just 1 degree. So when at 1 degree, at the point where those two lines are joining, it may be they seem very close, but as you keep drawing those lines, after a long distance, the vertical distance between, if you make these lines and then another line like this, you will see the distance becomes very high. So when these deviations start, they seem, oh, it's just a simple deviation, that's okay, it's because of the time and place, we can do it. But then with time, slowly the digression becomes so pronounced. So while we can present the philosophy according to time, place, and circumstance, but we should never compromise with the purity, the integrity of the Siddhanta, the etiquette, the Sadachar, the principles that have been laid out in the scriptures and by our acharyas. So then Yadav Das ji says, Babaji Mahashay, do the scriptures describe any system for accepting the renounced order? So Anandas Babaji says, it is not clearly described. People of all castes can become Vaishnavas. But according to Shastra, only those who are twice born can accept sannyas. So he's saying that there is certain regulation that only those who are Dvij, twice born, can accept sannyas. Now, who is Dvij? Who is twice born? The general understanding is a Brahman is called a Dvij. No. But Dvij means, Dvi means two, Ja means birth. Who has two births? So one birth from the womb of the mother. And the second birth is when one accepts the shelter of a spiritual master and takes initiation. So that is someone who gets initiated. That person is also called Dvija. And if he has all the qualities of a Brahman, then he is also considered a Dvij. So he quotes from Srimad Bhagavatam, and sorry, since my PowerPoint is not working today on this particular laptop, so I'll just quote this verse. This is from the 7th canto, 11th chapter, the last verse in that chapter. This is where Narad Rishi is describing the Varnashram system to Maharaj Yudhishthir. So he says, यस्य यत् लक्षणं प्रोक्तं पुंसः वर्णा अभ्यवंजकं यत् अन्यत्रापि दृश्येत तत् तेन एव विनिर्दिशेत. So he says, yasya yat lakshanam proktam, that whatever a person should be considered, if one sees the qualities in a person, whatever qualities one sees in a person, that person's varna should be decided based on what his qualities are, even if he has appeared in a different caste. So, if one has the qualities of a Brahman, even though he may have been born in the Vaishya or the mercantile class or in the Shudra class, But if he has the qualities of a Brahman, he's to be considered a Brahman. The same thing Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Chatur Varna Maya Srishtam Gun Karma Vibhagashaha. So he says the principal criteria for determining Varna is possession of the characteristics unique to the Varna. Birth is not the principal criteria for determining Varna. So, therefore, now combine these two things. So, the first he said that only one who is a Brahman can become a sannyasi according to the scriptures. And then, secondly, quoting from Srimad Bhagavatam, that anyone can become a Brahman if he has the qualities of a Brahman. So, when we combine these two instructions from the scriptures, then he says that this verdict of the Shastra supports the practice of offering sannyas to men who possess Brahminical symptoms, even though they are born of other castes. So, and this is why our acharyas have given sannyas to those who are not necessarily were born in the Brahman families. So, we have seen in the Vilshil Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, he gave sannyas to anyone who was qualified. Similarly, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, when he came to the West, he gave sannyas to his Western disciples, many young men. And there was a lot of opposition to this when he went back to India, especially from the Smartas, a lot of opposition. And some even within the Gaudiya, uh, some Gaudiya Mat, our Gurudev was very supportive and many were very supportive, but then there were some who were opposed. But there was absolutely nothing wrong in what he was doing, because what he was doing is completely supported by the scriptures, that if one is a Dvija, if one has the qualities of a Brahman, then he can be awarded sannyas. So he says, but this is from the Paramarthic perspective. Paramarthic means from the spiritual perspective. But if one is not following the path of spirituality, if this is more of a smarta, the ritualistic path, so there is the path that we follow of Paramarth, and then there is a path of smarta, which is more ritualistic. And there is certainly consideration of one being a Brahman by birth to be able to take sannyas. But that ritualistic path is not spiritual, and it does not lead to any spiritual upliftment. So, therefore, in our Gaudiya Parampara, one can accept sannyas if one has the qualities of a Brahman. So, after all these question and answers had taken place, then Yadav Das ji says, Brother Chandidas, do you have answer to your questions? And Chandidas ji says that today I am very, very blessed. He gives a summary of everything that he has understood. So we'll read this, very beautiful. He says, of all the instructions that have flowed from the mouth of the most revered Babaji Mahashay, these are the points I have been able to assimilate. The first thing he says, what he has understood, the Jiva is an eternal servant of Krishna. So this is the fundamental understanding of Gaudiya Siddhanta, that Jivera Swarup hoy Krishner Nityadas. This is the basis of our entire Siddhanta. And one who understands this in essence, he can make progress very quickly. Because when we say eternal, meaning our real relationship is only with Sri Krishna. Every relationship that we have in this world is temporary. So, realizing this is the key to make progress. Because if we just hear but don't actually develop that detachment from the material relationships, then it is all like that boat which you are rowing, but it is still anchored to the shore. And then even if you keep rowing, as you know, you can row for hours, but still you will not move forward. So eternal, and then servant of Krishna. Servant means that there's a relationship of service, loving service. That means we are not uh, we are we believe that the Lord has a form. Our eternal position is not to merge into the transcendental undifferentiated effulgence called Brahma Jyoti. That is not the natural state of the jiva, and therefore one falls down from that state also. So understanding that we are an eternal servant, our eternal relationship with Krishna of love and affection, this is the most important point to understand. And then he says, but he forgets this and takes on material body. So many of these points we have understood, read. So I'll just read, as this is a summary of everything that Anantas Babaji was explaining. Influenced by the qualities of material nature, he derives happiness and distress from material objects. For the privilege of enjoying the fruits of his material activities, he must wear a garland of birth, old age, and death. So, one life after another life, we are continuing this um, mala or garland of continuous birth and death. Every time we take birth, then grow, then old age comes, death, again birth, continuing for so many millions of lifetimes. The jiva sometimes takes birth in a high position and sometimes in a low position, and is led into innumerable circumstances by his repeated change of identity. Hunger and thirst spur him to action in a body that may perish at any instant. No, so important for us to understand and realize this. Just 2 3 days ago, um, earthquake came in Venezuela. Right? Within seconds, thousands of people perished at an instant. And that's when you realize that we have, especially, those who experience this, if you just read it in the news, then you probably don't really experience that. But I was reading that many of them are saying and experiencing that how unpredictable life is. So within an instant one perishes. He is bereft of the necessities of this world and is cast into unlimited varieties of suffering. Many diseases and ailments appear, which torment his body. In his home, he quarrels with his wife and children, and sometimes he goes to the extent of committing suicide. His greed to accumulate wealth drives him to commit many sins. So the sins that are performed is only either to gratify one's senses, uncontrolled senses, and for that accumulating so much wealth. And for that one commits so many sinful things. The whole Western society is based on this idea to accumulate more and more. And for that, one commits so many sinful activities. And sin is in so many different ways. Today in the corporate world, I was saying yesterday also, that we see that people, for corporate greed, just to keep their profits high, to keep their stock markets high, they will lay off so many people, right? That's just another form of sin. So sin we see in so many different ways, and what is deriving that? Only the desire to accumulate wealth. And then one gets punished by the government, insulted by others, and still he continues committing these sinful activities. And even though one suffers from untold bodily afflictions, he's constantly aggrieved by separation from family members, loss of wealth, theft by robbers, and countless other causes of suffering. When a person becomes old, his relatives do not take care of him. We see in Vrindavan many times old widows. They, have spent their life bringing up their children, taking care of them, and when they become old and especially become a widow, the children kick them out. So, and here also, parents are left to live on their own in old age homes. So when one becomes old, the relatives also do not take care for them. And one suffers from so many different kinds of problems, like, all kind of diseases, all kind of pains, and suffers from different miseries. After death, he enters another womb and suffers intolerable pain. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam. Sripa Shankaracharya sings. Again birth, again death, again birth, again death, again going, taking refuge in the womb of mother. Yet, despite all this, as long as the body remains, his discrimination is overpowered by lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, and envy. So, as long as the body is there, and even though one is suffering in so many ways, still his discrimination, his ability to decide, distinguish between right and wrong, and take the path of righteousness, to tread the path of spirituality, he's not able to do it because his discrimination, his mind is overpowered by lust, the desire. Krishna says in Gita, Daivi Esha Gunmai. This material energy is very, very powerful. Mam Maya Duratyaya, not easy to overcome. So, by lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, and envy, all these six enemies are constantly buffeting, constantly keeping one on the hook and keeping one engaged in mundane activities. So, like Krishna says, Daivi Esha Gunmai Mammaya Duratyaya Mam Ev Ye Prapadyante Mam Mayam Etam Tarantite. But one who unconditionally surrenders unto me, he can overcome this very difficult illusory energy, which is otherwise difficult to overcome. But one who surrenders unto me, he can cross this ocean of ignorance. He says, now I understand this is sansar, this is material existence. I understand the meaning of word sansar. I repeatedly offered Danvat pranams to Babaji Mahashaya. The Vaishnavas are guru for the entire world. So pure devotee. He is actually the real guru because he can actually teach us what is spirit and what is matter, who we are, who the Supreme Lord is, what is the real purpose of life, and how can we attain our lost relationship with the Supreme Lord. So, therefore, Vaishnav is the real guru, the real spiritual teacher for the entire world. Today, by the mercy of Vaishnavas, I have acquired real knowledge of this material world. And we are fortunate also that by the mercy of our Guru Varga, by the mercy of Vaishnavas, we have attained this beautiful transcendental knowledge which many are bereft of. So, we should also do our best to take this to as many as we can, because that is the greatest service we can do to our parampara, to our Guru Varga, is if we can share this knowledge with others. Because in fact, it is only the ignorance which is the cause of the miseries that everyone is suffering from. So when the Vaishnavas, who were all assembled there, they heard Anant Das Babaji's profound instructions, they all loudly exclaimed, Sadhu, Sadhu. And by this time, many Vaishnavas had assembled there, and they started singing a bhajan that was composed by Lahadi Mahashaya. So if you remember, in the last chapters, we read about Lahadi Mahashaya, who was also he was a good singer and was composing beautiful bhajans. So he also, by the association of Vaishnavas, had completely changed and taken to the Vaishnav Dharma. So he was composing beautiful bhajans, and here they all started singing one bhajan composed by him. ए घोर संसारे पड़िया मानव ना पाए दुखेर शेष साधु संग कोरी हरि भजे यदि तबे अंत हय क्लेश. He says, ए घोर संसारे, that the jiva has fallen into this dreadful material existence and finds no end to his distress. Na paye dukkhera shesha, no end to his distress. Sadhu sangakari, but when he associates with the devotees, then his troubles come to an end. And then he takes to the worship of Sri Hari. विषया अनले ज्वलिछे हृदय अनले बाड़े अनाला अपराध छड़ी लय कृष्ण नामा anale padaye jala. So the raging fire of sensual desires scorches his heart. And when he tries to satisfy those desires, the fire simply flares up with greater intensity. That is the nature of fire. You put fuel, it will become stronger. So the senses can never be satisfied by just uncontrolled enjoyment. But, however, relinquishing offenses and chanting Sri Krishna Nam acts like a cooling shower of rain which extinguishes this blazing fire. So, real happiness, the real calmness, and the real peace one can only experience when this raging fire of sense enjoyment calms down, and that only comes by the association of pure devotees and by chanting the holy name, engaging in Krishna bhajan. निताई चैतन्य चरण कमल आश्रय लई लाये कालिदास बले जीवने मरने अमर आश्रय से. So Kalidas says, he who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Chaitanya Nitai is my refuge in life and in death. So, like this, they were all singing and in great ecstasy dancing the holy name and taking the dust of each other's lotus feet. Chandidas, he was taking the dust from from the lotus feet of all the various Babajis, all the Vaishnav devotees there, and seeing this, that how he had was experiencing the ecstasy of the holy name. Everyone was saying, oh, now Chandidas, he's so fortunate. Why so fortunate? Because he has understood the fundamentals of Vaishnav philosophy and has taken it to the heart. So our fortune is rises when we take the instructions seriously. So one may have the association of devotees, one may even take shelter of a spiritual master. But if one does not take the instructions to the heart, if one does not follow them sincerely, then our fortune has not really arisen. So attaining the Lord is not very difficult. Just like switching on the light in your room is not very difficult. You just have to flip the switch on. So we have to flip that switch on of our mind, which is right now still has some doubts, still is not surrendered. But when one gets that conviction that yes, this is the truth, then why do I have to worry? Why do I have to see here and there? And why do I have to still hold myself back? Why don't I just completely dedicate myself? There is when Krishna himself is saying that if you completely surrender unto me, I will purify you completely, and you will certainly attain me. Then it is only our doubts, our reluctance that is separating us from that pure bliss, separating us from Sri Krishna's pure love. So Chandidas has taken this to his heart. So fortunate. So then, after some time, Yadav Das ji says it was getting late in the day. He says to Chandidas, let's go to the other side of the river. So remember, they were from Koladweep or Kuliagram, where our Keshavji Gaudiya Math and Devanand Gaudiya Math are situated. And they had crossed the Ganges to go to Godrum, where Pradyum Das Babaji's Kunja was there. So nowadays, also when we go in Navadvip Parikrama, so we actually go by crossing the Ganges only from Koldweep to go to Godrum. So he says, let's go back. It is getting late in the evening. So then Chandidas replied cryptically, if you traverse the river of material existence, then by your Sangha, I can also cross. The two of them offered Dandvat pranams to Pradumna Kunj and departed. As they came out of the Kunj, they saw Damayanti offering repeated obeisances. So she was not able to go to the Kunja because, being a woman, she stayed outside. And now she was lamenting that had I taken birth as a man, I could easily have entered this Kunja, taken darshan of the great souls, and become purified by taking their foot dust on my head. May I simply become the servitor of the Vaishnavas of Sri Navdeep birth after birth. So, see, developing this desire is the real fruit of association. When the desire comes in our heart that I also want to serve like these exalted Vaishnavas, I also want to be renounced like them. And then similarly, that same mood of I also want to serve Shri Krishna like all his associates, when that desire comes in the heart, then one is able to overcome all kind of impediments, and it is that pure desire that takes us forward. So Yadav Das ji says this Godrum Dham is perfectly sacred. He quotes from Prabodhanand Saraswati, who was a great Vaishnavacharya. He wrote Sri Navdeep Shatak, 100 verses glorifying Sri Navdeep Dham, where he says, Na lok ved udhrit marga bhedahi, avishya shanklishya re vimudhaha, हठेन सर्वम परिहृत्य गौड़े श्री गौद्रुमे पर्ण कुटीम कुरुध्वम. O fools, although you have taken shelter of worldly society and the Vedas and adopted many social and religious duties, you remain miserable. Now give up these dubious paths and quickly build yourself a leaf hut in Sri Godrum. So, what he's saying is that taking shelter of all these other social things and other ritualistic practices defined in the Vedas, various social and religious duties, doing all of that is of no benefit. It does not really alleviate one's miserable situation. But if one gives up all these dubious path, why? Because there is doubt whether one can actually attain liberation, whether one can actually become happy by following these ritualistic paths. But if one with faith takes up the chanting of the holy name, surrenders to the Navadvip Dham, and he says makes a leaf hut in Sri Godrum and lives there, then he will certainly be able to overcome all the miseries in life. So, like this, by discussing what they had heard today from Anant Das Babaji, they crossed the Ganga to go to Kulyagram. And from now onwards, the life of this couple, Chandidas and his wife Damayanti, was completely transformed. They had now no interest in anything mundane. They had spent all their life accumulating so much wealth, which, because of which, they actually got kicked out by their own children, by their own sons. So now they realized what is the truth of material existence, and completely detached from all the material relationships, they were very happily engaged in constantly chanting Krishna Nam, in serving the Vaishnavas and showing mercy to all the other jivas. So, this is the true blessing, if we can spend our life also by following this um, path, by how they as householders, if one can engage in serving the devotees by serving Thakurji, chanting the holy name, and living a life of purity, then the life is certainly very blissful, and without doubt, one would make great progress in the path of bhakti, and and receive the mercy of Shri Guru and Shri Krishna. So this is now concludes the seventh chapter of Jaiv Dharam. Again, this was a long chapter, many important points explained by Shri Thakur Bhakti Vinod, which are very important for everyone, whether one is a householder, whether one is renounced. Very important points for us to understand and follow in our life. So we'll stop here and then see if anyone has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
It's really uh, incidental, this Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. Adi Shankaracharya only mentioned that. Last time also we talked about Adi Shankaracharya, but even though he propounded Advaita philosophy, at least in this one Bhajagovindam song, he said very clearly that there is repeated birth and death. So he has admitted that there is suffering here.
Mm-hmm.
So, in no way, if there is suffering here, then there is no way that the jiva can be equal to the Supreme Lord in all respects after liberation.
Mm-hmm.
So, that itself negates Mayavada philosophy, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. See, Brahmvad or Mayavad does not have any sound philosophical foundation. It is simply manifestation of the aversion that the jiva has towards the Supreme Lord, right? Because you are not wanting to surrender and saying, I am also Brahm. So, certainly no sound logical foundation of Brahmvad. So if the jiva is suffering here in this world, how can he be Brahman? Right? And if Brahm gets covered by Maya, gets covered by illusion, then he's not Brahm in the first place. Right? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So yeah, yes, Prabhu.
It's a very nice class. Thank you. You covered a lot of topics, but some of the things that stick out to me is you're talking about surrendering to Guru to get rid of our unwanted habits and the source of our unwanted habits, like our anarthas, our desire to collect. The big one that I struggle with is like reward seeking behavior. If I'm going to do something, I have to ultimately like enjoy the outcome of it in some way. So you said these things are impossible to mitigate or to completely abandon on our own, that we need to take shelter of a Sadguru and Vaishnavas to be able to find relief from these things. Correct?
Yes, yes. Because without that, without that bal, so without that strength that you get by connecting to the parampara through the medium of the spiritual master, not possible. Like Krishna is saying, Daivi Esha Gurmai, my illusion is very difficult to overcome. But one who surrenders unto me, how do we surrender to Krishna? It's only through the medium of surrendering to the spiritual master.
Um, so obviously coming from a materially contaminated standpoint, a lot of times whenever we're trying to approach things with sincerity or honesty in the material world, it doesn't work out in any way for our benefit. So how can we battle the mind and some assurance that it actually will turn out well and it's not just another fruitless endeavor that we're going to end up losing in? It's a very big concern of mine. Speaking from my
Well, a
perspective.
good point. It's a good point. Because see, our nature has become like that. Because we get in this world cheated, right? We get cheated all the time, by society, by friends, by family, by employers. So there's the cheating propensity all around us, and even in the religious circles it is there. So one can have that doubt, but this is where we depend on the scriptures, what the shastra is saying. So guru, shastra, and acharya. So some faith has to be there. If one always is doubtful, then we would never make any progress. Like Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, Sandehe Atma Vinashyati. That if one is always doubtful, then ultimately it will lead to destruction. If I am doubtful, if I have no faith in the construction company or the civil engineer who built the house or the building in which I am sitting, then I will always keep thinking that the roof is going to fall on my head, right? So you may have that doubt. And there are people like that who suffer from this kind of thing. They're just doubting everyone. So they become very, very miserable. So in fact, in this life also, to live our day-to-day life, we have faith that yes, this car is going to drive. This, roof is not going to fall on my head. This food that I'm eating, I'm not going to die eating this food. So that faith has to be there to begin with. But the faith, like Srila Prabhupada will also say, we also have to be intelligent, right? So blind faith does not mean that one does not use one's intelligence. And therefore,
And
one always has to see Guru, Shastra, and Acharya, what the Guru is saying, what the scriptures are saying, and what the Vaishnavas are saying. So, if the Guru is doing something wrong or instructing something wrong, which is not as per the scriptures or the senior Vaishnavas, that means he is digressing. Then one has to become careful. So, Shastra is always pure. It will never be that the scripture is telling something wrong, the pure scriptures. So, to your point, that one, yes, we have that doubt, and that doubt is only because of our own weakness. It's not that the process is wrong, right? The process is perfect, and but it is our the lack of our um, proper execution or sincere execution that sometimes we don't see the results, and the nature of the mind is to always doubt. See, bhakti cannot be achieved academically, it cannot be achieved through mental faculty. Ultimately, one has to have faith, and one has to have innocent mood of simple and innocent mood of surrender. uh, Again, but with discrimination, right? Because innocent surrender does not mean that one gets fooled either, because unfortunately there is that cheating propensity even in Sanatan Dharam. So so therefore, you have to follow with faith but with discrimination.
So the the issue would not be with the Shastra and it would not be external. The issue is always internal. If we're seeing something external, we're experiencing some kind of duplicity or unkindness, would we be the source of it? Or
No,
does that
so
make sense?
hypocrisy can be there. See, that's what I'm saying. The someone like, and that's exactly what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is explaining here. That someone who is a grihatyagi, someone who's renounced, externally renounced, he's faking it. He's a hypocrite. Now, if you're seeing that in someone's behavior, that someone's behavior is not in line with the Shastra, see, that's always the parameter. Because sometimes we feel that someone is hypocrite or someone not acting properly, not so much because of that person's behavior not in line with the scriptures, but more because of our own mentality of finding faults. A person may be perfectly fine, right? But we have a fault finding tendency. That's why we are seeing some hypocrisy or problem in that person's behavior, right? So that's where I said that discrimination, that ability should be there. One should always approach, if one is seeing that, then go and approach someone else and see that what you are seeing is actually correct or simply a manifestation of your own mood of finding faults, right? So especially in this, in our initial stages when we are in unsteady bhakti, this happens. And again, Madhurya Kadambani, so many things like this are being explained by Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So it's a path. That's why, our Acharya says, even the path of bhakti is very simple, but it is also like walking on the razor's edge. Why? Because it's simple for simple hearted but very complex for complicated. Actually, bhakti is very simple, very blissful, but in today's world we have become so complex, so doubtful, and so many things in the world around us, and in general even the devotees, I would say there is a lot of complexity and issues because of the way the world is today, right? That's why we face these problems, but today also, especially if you go, it's becoming rare, but if you went, like, I remember years ago when we would go, and even now you see that mood. You go to Brindaban, to Braj, and you see these very simple hearted devotees, those Brajbasis, and you see their mood of devotion, and it's so um, has such an impact on you, because for them, Krishna, Srimati Radhika, their love for them is so spontaneous, and that shows that path is perfect, right? It just because we have become very complex in today's world, that's why we've experienced these kind of issues. But again, to your point, yes, it could be a manifestation of your own internal mood that you're seeing these problems, but it could be also the problem in that person. So therefore one has to be very discriminating and careful.
So you would be able to judge the quality of the tree by the fruit.
Yeah,
Something
see,
like that.
typically we should try, sorry, say that again.
You would be able to judge the quality of the tree by the fruit. What's
Yes,
coming from
true,
it. If we're
true.
speaking on behalf of a spiritual
But
master,
one
whether
thing I would say, see, one thing I would say, like, just because someone is in the mutt, or someone has taken initiation, does not become mean that he has become perfect, right? That's why it is called initiation, that you have just been initiated into this path. So all
uh,
of us are like the patients in a hospital. When you get admitted to the hospital, you don't become cured. The very fact that you've gotten admission to the hospital don't mean that you've become cured, right? And so therefore we should not expect that someone who is just initiated is perfect and start finding faults in them. That's also not correct. The thing to see is, as long as the person is genuinely and honestly trying to execute, and not being hypocrite, not doing things out of jealousy, then one may have some weaknesses. Then one actually, as good devotees, we help each other, right? That's one quality. You help each other to make progress, and that's why it's called a sangha. Sangha means association. When we work together in a genuine mood of trying to make spiritual progress, then you help each other, right? You don't say, you criticize each other or look down upon someone, because the person is also trying, but then there is also some weaknesses. So again, to your point, yes, it is a fruit of a tree that shows that it's the results are shown by one's behavior. But again, one should not expect complete perfection from devotees once they are initiated.
last thing. So sometimes I'm talking to maybe some like householder devotees, and they express an interest to want to perform bhakti more sincerely, and so, we talk about it and try to figure out, well, why aren't we able to take advantage of the association? Because the association is there, and there obviously must be some fault on our part. And what it comes down to most of the time, the far as we get, is there seems to be some stress on us becoming perfect, like doing Shuddha Bhakti without any expectations of enjoying the fruits. And I mean, myself and I think many other people were not there at all. So it's like, would it be some benefit to try to find a way to have relationships where they understand that we're not perfect and we don't see ourselves becoming perfect, but throughout this process, we should become perfected if we could take advantage of the association, no?
Yeah,
Like if we're
see,
sincere.
again, the point to understand is, as I was saying here also before, I think last time we were discussing
Sure.
that what is being explained is the goal, right? So you have a goal post, there's a certain destination that you have to achieve. Now we have just started on the path, we have not reached the destination. So be able to get to the level of Shuddh Harinam, get to the level of mood of that pure loving devotion, that is the goal. And we are making a genuine and honest effort to get to that level, but we are not there yet. So one also have to be practical. So therefore, one should not um, demean oneself, or should not, as I said before, one should not become mental about it, because this happened. The path slowly will purify us. The process will slowly purify us, and based on the intensity of one's bhajan, one can progress, fast or slow. But we are not at that level of perfection right now. So one should not, while one should feel remorse about that, but at the same time, one also has to understand that it is not possible to become completely nirpeksha, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur in this chapter only explained, that in this body it is not possible to become completely nirpeksh, in the sense that become completely, have no dependence on food, shelter, clothing, anything. That's not possible. Now, when we give the examples, we may give example of Shukadeva Goswami, but we are not Shukadeva Goswami, right? So that is where the practical, yes, we can aspire for that level, and in some lifetime we can achieve that. We can aspire the mood of the six Goswamis, who could just eating nothing barely and just sleeping for 1.5 hours all day long. They were able to engage in bhajan, but we are not at that level, right? So the whole point is to develop a greed for that level of bhajan, and do the best you can within this physical body. And then, you know in the next life we will get to the next level, where we will be able to do it even more than what we are doing today, right? So that's why it is a journey. You don't become perfect in one lifetime. It is a gradual process.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for dealing with my speculative, doubtful line of questioning. I'm very grateful for your tolerance in the matter. Thank you for a wonderful class.
Always happy to get your stimulating questions, and to the extent I can, I can, whatever I've understood from our Guru Varga. And anyways, whatever, if you understood something correctly, that's all credit to them. And if I've misrepresented something, then it's only completely my fault. But again, what our Guru Varga has given, what the scriptures are saying, it's absolutely perfect, and and certainly achievable. But one has to do it under the shelter of Guru and Krishna, and in a very practical manner, right? So
Hare
thank you,
Krishna Prabhu,
everyone.
is there
Yeah, yeah,
time for one more question?
sure, Prabhuji.
So, since the chanting the holy name is the mainstay of our service, this our whole Lord Chaitanya has just chanting holy name. But is there a difference in chanting the holy name on your own if you've just received it from uh, on your own, as opposed to actually taking a bona fide guru and chanting under his guidance? Will it give
Absolutely,
different results?
absolutely. Because that potency does not come. It is when we take the initiation, then you are connected to the Guru Parampara. And when the Guru gives, he gives the seed of bhakti. He implants that seed of bhakti in our heart by giving the holy name, by giving the Diksha mantras. So, therefore, if one thinks that one can, without taking shelter of a guru, a real guru, one can become, a devotee, one can cross the ocean of new science, one cannot. It's not possible. So in Ramcharitmanas also it says that, he says that I can believe that these flowers can bloom in the sky. If someone tells me, I will believe that. If someone tells me that you can make oil, ghee out of, or oil out of sand, I will still believe it. But if someone tells me that I was able to cross the ocean of material existence without taking shelter of the Guru, then I will not believe it. Bhavanidhi tare na koi. Without the shelter of Guru, one cannot cross this ocean. Because the Guru is the representative of Krishna, and without surrendering to him, one cannot um, one cannot cross. And then again, also another point of doing a solitary bhajan. So a couple of days ago, very beautiful quote from Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj. One should be very careful about this. He says, solitary bhajan is another name for sense gratification. So if one thinks, so I can just stay at home and I can do chant and just do everything myself, he says solitary bhajan is another name for sense gratification and as such is opposed to Hari bhajan. 100% of the people in this category are seen to fall down. It's not a very strong statement he's making, and true. He says, anyone who thinks I can just do bhajan on my own, without association, without serving, without staying in the Sangha, he says 100% of those will fall down. So that is the conclusive, that's a conclusion of the Shastras. Our Acharyas are saying that. So therefore, without taking shelter of a pure Guru and without staying in the Sangha, it is not possible. Okay. So thank you once again. So as I said, we finished the 7th chapter. Next time we'll start the 8th chapter, but we are going to not have the class next weekend. So after that, we will continue the weekend after the next one. So thank you once again, everyone. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari
Shri
Hari Bol.
Gurudev ki
Hari
jai.
Bol,
Jai.
Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.